Hello and welcome, Serie A fans, to another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. My name is Daniele Proc, and I am joined today, as usual, by analyst Steve Coleman. What's up, Steve?
Morning, how you going?
I'm pretty good, thanks. And also, I'm joined by analyst Tom Pierce from our London bureau. Hello, Tom.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Pretty good. And finally, I have the pleasure to welcome on today's show Alex Comzia, center back for Professional Football Club North Carolina FC in Raleigh and La Liga podcast contributor. Thank you for speaking with us, Alex.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Daniele. Appreciate it.
Our Italian menu today features tactical analysis from this past weekend's matches, as well as some cool-to-know facts about Serie A teams and players. And finally, a preview of 4 upcoming matches, including this Wednesday Coppa Italia final between Napoli and Juventus. But let's take a step back and look at what happened in the semifinal of the Coppa Italia, beginning with Friday's game between Juventus and AC Milan. So for those who didn't get a chance to watch the game, Milan began the game knowing they had to score a goal, at least to qualify, but they clearly took a defensive approach. They were missing key players like Ibrahimovic and Hernandez. So what they did, they kept the team compact, keeping close distance between their lines to avoid players of quality like Dybala to exploit that space, the pocket in front of the center backs. Juventus in turn began the game pressing high, not letting Donnarumma take short goal kicks. Basically, the highlight of the game can be summarized in those 7 crazy seconds around minute 16. So first, VAR awarded a PK to Juventus due to a handball by Andrea Conti. Something rare happened. Ronaldo missed the PK. Actually, Donnarumma got his finger on the ball, pushed it off the post, and then the AC Milan defense was able to clear it. And it was on that clearance that 2 players contested the ball. It was Juventus center back Bonucci and Milan striker Ante Rebic. I think that Rebic just lost his mind. He landed a lunging kick on Bonucci's chest. And
that was crazy.
It was crazy. It was shown a straight red card.
High kick. I don't know what he was thinking.
And I gotta tell you, that awkward foul took me back to the 2010 World Cup final when Nigel de Jong sunk a flying kick on Xabi Alonso's ribs.
Right. Reckless.
Did you guys have like a similar deja vu moment?
Wait, didn't Zlatan do that to Materazzi?
Oh, yeah.
Zlatan did it to Materazzi.
Oh, yeah. He didn't jump for that, did he? He just 1 foot right in the
and I
chest.
think it was like 2010, 2011 season. And I loved it because I'm half French, so I hate Materazzi. So it was a highlight of
For some reason, I love him. But
it's amazing in that little section of play there that we're not even talking about the VAR decision. We're more interested in the tackle. That's how bad the tackle was.
Yeah.
Even if the ref did not see it, like VAR is gonna go back to it and just review it and show a straight red card. So I don't know what he was thinking. Alex, as a player, what would you think? What would you say to a teammate if someone did something like that?
Oh, to Rebic?
Yeah.
Look, it's just lazy. You know, you can see where his eyes are. He's looking at the ball. He's so ball oriented, and then he raises his foot up. He extends his foot. It's a lazy play. It's too late. By the time he sees the player there, his studs are up. You know, maybe he leaves it up there on purpose. I'll leave that up to interpretation. But it's pretty dumb. I'd be really mad at him. I would tell him off in the locker room after. But, the response was great by Milan.
True, because AC Milan, they did struggle offensively, missing a man, playing away. They had to put Bonaventura on top. And they clearly struggled with bringing the team up past their own midfield because they didn't have any outlets. So for the entire second half, the music didn't really change. At some point, Juventus refused to keep pressing hard on the gas pedal, maybe because they just wanted to drag the game to the 90th minute for that 0-0 draw that eventually did qualify them. But one of the biggest takeaway from me was that AC Milan showed really to be solid defensively. They had great defensive organization. I like the work of captain and center back Romagnoli, as well as his partner Kier. They kept the team together. And here's what I wanted to ask you, Alex. What is the extra work that you need to do as a center back when you're one man down?
I mean, look, like you said, it changes the game completely, and I thought Chiesa and Romagnoli were excellent leaders. What ends up happening when you go a man down is, naturally you take out a forward, an attacking player. So what ends up happening is their defensive midfielder and their center backs have a lot more time on the ball to take space and then engage. So as a block of 10, you're thinking about reducing the space behind, make them play out wide, turn it into a crossing game. And I thought they did that expertly well. So the communication has to be, even better when you're at 10. The space between lies has to be condensed. The way you shift horizontally has to be very good. You don't want overloads on the wide spots, although you will naturally have those. And you just got to man up, mark up. It becomes less of a man marking situation for individual players, and it becomes, look, I need to take care of the player in my space and my space only. And my head needs to be on a swivel all the time. I need to be able to listen with no fans. It's amazing. They can really hear each other. Like, look, there's a guy moving into your right, guy moving behind your left. So, look, I thought it was an expert masterclass from them. It is unfortunate that, Juve didn't really need that goal, so they weren't pressing as much for a goal as maybe some other games and situations. So, I don't want to take anything away from them either. So,
yeah, despite being one man up, I didn't really see many 2v1s on the sides by Juventus. Right. I think the AC Milan was great at doubling up.
And I thought they dealt with Ronaldo very well. I remember one specific play, Romagnoli had a Nesta-like tackle on Cristiano, and just perfect slide. And look, that's a big confidence booster, massive confidence booster. So, and after that, they dealt with crosses well. I think Kier had a good chance too on a I think it was a corner kick to get a goal in. So, yeah.
About that tackle, he made Ronaldo kind of look slow, huh? I remember that.
A little bit. Yeah, the animal, the beast will be back next time. He's coming for revenge against Napoli. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and Steve, so I remember us talking about how Dybala was going to be key in exploiting the spaces in front of the center backs in the pocket. What do you think went wrong for him this game?
I don't think anything necessarily went particularly badly. It just wasn't a great game of football. I think there's no point sugarcoating it. The sending off was, well, basically the end point of the attacking side of things for Milan. They did sit deep to begin with, but when you're down to 10 and you need a goal to win the game, you're relying on set pieces and counter attacks to try and make the most of your chances. But what you can't do is get further and further behind in the game. So I think the sending off suited Juventus in terms of they didn't really have to come and try and get anything from the game. So it's very passive from them, I thought. And I have to say I wasn't overly interested in watching after the sending off. I thought it was a pretty dull encounter and a typical game. First up, it was like a preseason friendly from my perspective.
Yeah, AC Milan only had one real chance, I would say, at the beginning of the second half.
Yeah.
When Bonaventura crossed the ball for Çalhanoğlu, the header went just off for just a little bit. But besides that, they struggled. Even when Leao came in, he's a real striker, but you can tell that he was tired of running around right away because he was just being marked closely by the center backs. They had like 2v1 or 3v1 on him sometimes. But overall, I do think that it was still too little from Juventus. What do you guys think?
Well,
they didn't need to win.
They didn't need to win.
No, they didn't need to win the game, did they? So it played into their hands. It was almost like a training run for the final Wednesday night.
True, but sometimes the best way to lose the game is not to try to win it. So I expected more from them. Yes, it's been 3 months. Yes, you have to find the chemistry back, but I don't know. When they went one man up, I said, "Wow, AC Milan is gonna get dominated now," and that really didn't happen. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I was looking a bit at the stats afterwards, and it was interesting to see that Ronaldo had 9 shots, but none of them were of real value, as you say. Bonucci kind of dealt with him well in that game. Not Bonucci, whoever the defender was. Sorry. But yeah, I think Ronaldo had 9 shots and Dybala had 6 shots, but yeah, they didn't really create anything of true value, to be fair.
Yeah, even the possession by Juventus was something like 62%, but I do agree that it didn't seem like that. Let's transition now to the other game, Napoli-Inter. It finished with a 1-1 tie, and that qualified Napoli. So, Steve, why don't you dive deeper into this game?
Yeah, thanks. I thought this one was really interesting. It was certainly a lot more progressive than the first game on the Friday. But I think the biggest surprise first up was obviously Napoli leaving Rui out of the side. He's obviously been quite influential for them in that left-hand side. So that was a bit of a surprise. But we spoke last week about Inter trying to win the game with their use of their wing-backs and trying to get them hard at the pitch. And I think in the first half, we did see them be a lot more progressive with those wing-backs. Certainly, Ashley Young on the left-hand side was a lot more dangerous from wide areas, delivering balls into the box. So that created one aspect of the game in terms of Inter's threats. They certainly pressed hard at the pitch. Their passes per defensive action was down at 6, with a 39% pressing efficiency, which was really good to see them trying to have a proper go. And also from midfield as well, their pressing from midfield was a lot more constructive. So I think the goal itself was a pretty average one to concede. Ospina's got to do a little bit better from the corner, but he was brilliant for the rest of the game. I thought Ospina he certainly kept Napoli in it for large parts of the game, and the goal that Napoli scored was his catch and clearance to put them in behind and for them to score on the counter was a fantastic and ruthless effort, really. And I think Inter probably would be disappointed not to win the game. I think they created lots of chances and they did enough to disrupt Napoli. And Napoli's usual possession stats weren't quite as high. The midfield three only had 72 passes between them in the entire game, which tells you how much they disrupted them in midfield. So Napoli spent a whole lot of time going around the pressure rather than through it, which is unusual for them. So, fascinating game. Napoli, good for the result, but Inter will be disappointed not to get something for sure.
Yeah, and I think that Napoli definitely had a more proactive approach if we want to compare it to Juventus. At least that's what I think. And back to your point about Ospina, for me, he was man of the match. Yes, he did mess up on that Eriksen goal / Elmas own goal, but he then made an incredible save on Candreva. He picked up the ball on the very same corner, and then he sent Insigne on the counter attack, which then led to Insigne assisting Mertens and then scoring the 1-1 that eventually qualified Napoli.
It was a defensive nightmare there.
Why?
I forgot which player was it. Was it Brozovic? Who is there? Who turned his back the wrong way and the ball bounced and it went straight to Insigne straight off the kick of Ospina. I forgot which player. Do you remember?
I remember Eriksen chasing down Insigne. I don't know how they ended up being.
It was just so unorganized, and look, I don't want to take anything away from that play, but it shouldn't happen. The ball shouldn't bounce and skip and then go to Insigne like that, like wide open. So.
It's something they must have picked up on though, because it happened 2 or 3 times.
Right, and it was poor footwork. Poor footwork, poor covering. You need more numbers, so they'll be disappointed, like you said, Steve.
But let me give some credit to Insigne because his first and second touch forward were just amazing.
Yeah.
He then put his body in front of Eriksen, who was chasing him. Now Eriksen couldn't touch him because Insigne was in the box. So what he did is just set up really like a chocolate pass for Mertens, who arrived full speed, and with a smile he just pushed the ball in for the equalizer.
And to equal the record, isn't he? Goal scoring record, is that right?
Yeah, he surpassed Amsic and Maradona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, what a legend.
He is a legend.
What do you guys think? Because we broke down the performances of Candreva during this one of the previous episodes. How do you guys think that Candreva did during the past game?
I think he's so much better when the Inter get on the front foot and he can defend hard at the pitch. It gets him in better positions when they have the ball. Yeah, I thought he was bright. Had a good chance. Ospina made a great save from one he cut inside the box, and Ospina tipped it over the bar. So it certainly plays into his hands when Conte wants to get them hard at the pitch, pressing, and gives them that go forward on the other side to Young for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's transition to our section called Cool to Know. So we're basically going to give you guys some fun facts about Serie A. And we're actually going to stay in Napoli because Tom has some incredible stats about fullback Mario Rui. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, well, this week my tactical analysis piece, which will be out by the time this podcast is out, is looking at the underrated fullbacks in Serie A. So the 6 metrics I listed, which are important for fullbacks, he came top 10 in 5 of them, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Just a few of his figures here. He has 15 progressive passes per 90, which kind of blows any other fullback out of the water in Serie A. And then he has a 64.84% defensive duel success rate, which is up there with some of the highest in the league as well. So he's defensively solid as well. And he also has 0.15 expected assists per 90. So he has that final third threat as well. So in all bases of the game, he's been excellent for Napoli this season, even though they have been fairly underwhelming.
You know what? Even if you bring up all these stats, I struggle to believe that he's that good because first off, it just doesn't seem like. And secondly, Ancelotti and Gattuso never really consistently start him. Actually, Gattuso sometimes he puts Hysaj, who's a right-footed fullback, on the left side instead of playing Mario Rui, right?
He's got something over 1,100 minutes this season, hasn't he? But it seems like whenever he's on the pitch, he provides some sort of value to the team.
Yeah, wow. What you got for us, Steve, for cool to know things?
Yeah, it's mine's about the relegation situation. Obviously, people focus heavily on the top and who's going to get those European spots, but people probably won't know that there's 8 candidates for 3 spots in the relegation battle right now. So there's 2 that are already likely to go down. So Brescia and Spal are pretty much down in the bottom 2, but only 5 points separate Lecce in 18th and Fiorentina in 13th. So there's a big gap, or a big number of teams that will be looking over their shoulder. So I guess one of the coolest stats, well, not from their perspective, but when you take out set pieces, Spal have only scored 12 goals from open play this year. So that's a ridiculous stat when you consider 26 games have been played so far. So there's a reason why they're down the bottom. But anybody from Torino downwards should be pretty concerned with what they've got to come. So Torino have lost 4 on the bounce, for example, got themselves dragged into the relegation battle. But their poor form could be a big factor in them potentially going down. So yeah, anybody out there who's a bit bored of watching Juventus win most of the time, they should probably take a look further down the table, and there's definitely some interesting games coming up that are going to take a big impact on that relegation battle.
Do you actually think that Torino has a chance, is really risking relegating? Because I'm looking at the roster and wow, if they relegate, that's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, it's mad, but I think they're almost sleepwalking themselves into the battle. The 4 on the bounce that they've got beaten, I think is a real issue for them. The other one that might be in there is Udinese. They've got to play 5 of the top 6 sides in their last games, as well as the 5 teams around them. So they could have a real big impact, and could be another slippery slope for them for sure. But most of the teams down there are underperforming on the stats, certainly defensively. It's going to be a pretty interesting race to the bottom for sure over the next 10 games or so.
Yeah, and I'm sure that these bottom of the table teams, they are the ones that will give the hardest times to the top of the table teams as the season approaches the end, just because the motivation of fighting to just stay in the league is so high. Can you speak about that, Alex, when you're in the locker room, and how big of a change does it make when you have to fight for a goal because maybe you are about to relegate, versus when you are in the safe zone and you just kind of play more carefree?
Right, you got to align the incentives, and when you're a mid-table team, there's not that much to play for as a player. Look, we are taught to treat every game like it's the same, right? But we're emotional creatures. We're aware of rewards. You definitely can't ignore that. So if you're, challenging for the title, or even more intense sometimes, trying to get out of the relegation zone, there's a lot of pressure there that is not there, and everyone knows that when you're in a mid-pack table scenario. So as a player, the pressure from the fans, the pressure from the staff, the front office, your own job is on the line, especially if you're in the relegation zone. So those are teams you cannot take lightly, because they're fighting for their lives.
Absolutely. All right, let me give you guys my cool to know thing. So I recently wrote a piece about Rodrigo Palacio and Goran Pandev that came out in the June issue of the Total Football Analysis magazine. I talked about how these guys are still killing it in the league despite being seasoned strikers, right? The Palacio is 38, Pandev is soon to be 37. So they are 2 of the 5 oldest strikers in Serie A, along with Ibrahimovic, Quagliarella, and Cyril Theroux. But here's my cool to know thing. Pandev scores a goal every 3.1 shots. So far, he has taken 22 shots in the league and has scored 7 goals for Genoa. To give you some context, Cristiano needs twice the amount of shots of Pandev to score a goal for Juventus, and which means that he scores every 6.2 shots for the Bianconeri.
That doesn't surprise me.
What do you guys think about it?
So what you're saying essentially is that Pandev is better than Ronaldo.
Sure. There is obviously context. We need to give context to the stats. Like Ronaldo shoots a lot from outside of the box. Pandev mainly takes shots from within the 18-yard box. And Ronaldo has taken something like 130 shots in the league. By far, he's first in this category.
Yeah, he takes like 6 shots a game, doesn't he?
Yeah, something like 6 shots per game, which is insane. He just receives, turn, and just fires. But Pandev,
it's an interesting stat. It's an interesting stat. Pandev's gonna play a big factor in the relegation battle, to link it back to that for sure. But Genoa don't get enough touches inside the box. I think off the top of my head, they're about 13 touches inside the box. So if Pandev's having the large chunk of them, then they'll be okay. But yeah, they need to do more to get him the ball for sure. It'll have a big impact on them, and then potentially staying up, because they're right in the mix down the bottom there.
Yeah, to me it's insane that you score every 3 shots. Like, you are being very cynical. Okay, let's move on to the games previews. So we are gonna quickly talk about Juve Napoli coming up this Wednesday, Coppa Italia final. The lineup should be the same. Juventus and Napoli are gonna have mirroring formations. Both are gonna play with a 4-3-3. And they both have the highest numbers for possession in the league. If I were to point out the biggest changes, so we're going to have Meret playing goal instead of Ospina, who is suspended. And Tom, we're going to have your guy, Mario Rui, very likely starting on the left.
That's good. Maybe we'll make an impact now that we've spoken about him.
Yeah, Steve, what should we expect from this game?
Hopefully a bit more than the first semi-final on Friday night. two progressive teams wanting to have the ball, two high pressing teams. If they both go after the ball like they did in their games over the weekend, a good tactical battle with some high quality players looking to make a difference and be the main man in the final. So yeah, I'd like to think Napoli in a one-off game could upset the apple cart and nick the win.
Let me tell you, these two teams, they hate each other a lot. Not just because in, what was it, 3 years ago, they really fought for the title, but also because you've had people like Higuain, Sarri, who went from Napoli to Juventus, maybe not directly, like because Sarri first went to Chelsea, but Napoli fans are pretty fired up about it. They don't like when things like that happen. Obviously, they won't be able to attend the game, but it will certainly be an exciting one. Another exciting game is going to be Sampdoria versus Inter. And precisely, Steve, what should we expect from this matchup?
Yeah, this is one that's for Samp is a big one in terms of the relegation, the battle, and getting themselves off to a good start. They're a really interesting side. They lose over half their possessions in the opponent third of the pitch. They're one of the better teams in progressing the balls forward from their own third and into the middle third. So their losses per game is high compared to the rest of the league, but they lose about 49 balls in the final third. So it'll be interesting to see how Inter counter that, whether again they're going to come and press higher up the pitch or whether they're going to drop off. But their ability, Samp, to move the ball to the final third is going to be key in that battle there. The other really interesting thing about them is they've only scored 6 goals in the first half of games so far this year, against an XG of 12.6. So that's meant they've had to play catch up a lot of the time. So if Inter do get on the front foot and nick a goal early, then don't expect Samp to sit down and just concede that defeat. But they score a lot of goals in the second half, obviously, but they're very slow starters. So the other thing that's going to be an impact is into getting the ball wide and delivering balls into the box. Sam have got a real issue for defending balls from wide areas because of the narrowness of their defensive block. So expect Conte to push the fullbacks or the wing-backs higher up the pitch and delivering balls into Lukaku into that central area. So yeah, interesting battle. Will Samp sit deep and try and steal a point against one of the top teams? Will they try and get on the front foot early? Will Inter press hard at the pitch and stop Samp trying to build out from the back? It'll be an interesting one, but yeah, hopefully a positive result for Samp and get their new season, if you like, off to a good start.
Are we going to see Lautaro and Lukaku together again, or you think that Alexis will get some significant minutes? Because I think he did well when he came in against Napoli.
I agree. I think he did okay. Conte's already spoken about mixing the teams around, and if they did make the final, obviously on Wednesday it was going to be a real issue for them, kind of numbers wise, with the games that they have to catch up on. So I think you might find that Sanchez starts the game with Lukaku, with Martinez off the bench.
Before we move to previewing Lecce against Milan, Steve, give me a quick prediction of the score between Samp and Napoli and the Inter. Sorry.
I'd like to see Samp win it for my own personal gains, but I think it's a draw. I think it's a 1-1 draw.
Fair. Tom, all yours.
Yeah, so Lecce at home versus AC Milan. I think the only noticeable injury might be Ibrahimovic. I'm not sure if he's ready. He wants to play, but I'm not sure if he'll actually play. If he does, it will be off the bench. The last match back in October was just after Pioli came in, a few weeks after he came in, and it was a 2-2 affair. Çalhanoğlu was the man of the match there, goal and assist in that game. I watched over the highlights today, and yeah, he just taking shots from everywhere like he does and creating a lot of chances. But I thought one player to note would be Saponara. So he came in January and made a decent impact since coming in. His
ex-player,
yeah,
ex-AC Milan.
Yeah. So He has 1 goal, 3 assists in 3 appearances for them, which is impressive for a side who are 18th in the league and struggle to attack. But it looks like Lecce are just going to try and attack down the wings, abuse the fullbacks of AC Milan. Depends who AC Milan pick at right back, especially, Conti or Calabria. But if I had to predict, I'd say that AC Milan would win this one. They've had a full 90 minutes of competitive football when Lecce haven't, so they've got that under their belt. But I just think AC Milan will be too solid defensively for them. Maybe a 1-0, 2-0 here.
So who should we expect to see on top if Ibrahimovic will start on the bench?
We imagine if they're going to go for that 4-4-2, it would be Leao maybe, or Castillejo up front as well. Rebic, his red card won't matter, will it? That's Coppa Italia, right?
Yeah.
So
probably,
Rebic might start then.
Yeah, if he gets forgiven for what he did.
Well, you said he was fired up, didn't you? Last week, you said he was fired up, and he definitely was.
So, Alex, how much harder is it to approach the Lecce game in the same way that AC Milan approached the Juventus game? Because obviously you have a weaker opponent in front of you. So how can you collect the same amount of mental energies to replicate the great defensive performance?
That's a great question. I mean, when you're a man down, you feel like there's this sort of mental toughness, and there's this, we're not supposed to do it. We're not supposed to do this. So you got this new energy about the team. And when you're up against Juve, it's even more heightened. You're up against the best players in the world. The platform is just, even more heightened. Against Lecce, it's tough. I don't know if they're going to come out with the same sort of intensity, with the same sort of motivation on an individual basis. Look, I think the defenders will, because that's kind of a trait of defenders in general, is like you actually need to come out with that intensity, or else you will get exposed. You have to get 10 out of 10 of your plays right, or else that one is going to be a goal. Strikers, wingers, attacking midfielders, if they can take some reps off, I don't think it's as magnified. But, I think they will come out and they will have a good performance, because they will be encouraged of the performance they had against Juventus. The morale is good. I don't see why they wouldn't come out with the same motivation. But for me, it might be a player-by-player case instead of a collective team case.
Fair. Will AC Milan concede a goal at Lecce, Alex?
No.
All right.
Disagree. I think this is the most boring game of the weekend, but I also think there could be an upset here.
So most boring game of the weekend. So you're gonna almost make me not watch it, Steve.
No, I would watch it for the upset. But Lecce sit the deepest of all the Serie A teams in the league. Obviously being in that relegation battle, so their passes per defensive action is the highest. They sit the deepest, but they've also scored 34 goals, which compares pretty favourably with the teams above them. So yeah, don't expect there to be too many goal threats at either end. But if Milan sit and defend like they did on Friday night and be compact, then yeah, this could be settled by a set piece, and don't be surprised if Lecce nick something from this game for sure.
I hope we're both wrong and we're in for like a thriller.
8-7.
An absolute thriller. Like 3-3, 4-4, 5-5 thriller.
Yeah. Well, Lecce's last game was 7-2, wasn't it? Atalanta beat them 7-2.
Yeah, a couple of teams have suffered from 5 or 6 goals by Atalanta this season.
Oh, it's happened 3-4 times, 7 goals, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Complete outlier in that regard.
Another interesting matchup for the title race will be Juventus playing at Bologna. So Bologna will play a 4-2-3-1, which is a trademark of Mihajlovic. A couple of players to highlight will be right winger Orsolini, who used to be a Juventus player before they released him and was signed by Bologna, and left winger Barro / Sansone, depends on who will play. Orsolini and Sansone, they both rank 5th in the league for dribbles per 90. So they both dribbles 7.61 times per 90 minutes. And so I think it will be key for a Bologna upset to isolate them with Juventus's fullbacks, respectively Alexandro and Cuadrado. Bologna has also recorded some good defensive stats. They rank first for defensive duels per 90 with 69.70, and they rank first in the pressing intensity, which is measured with the passive per defensive action measurement. They are missing Bani, their center back, who ranks on top of all these defensive stats. But if they keep their composure defensively and if they get to isolate those wingers, I think there is a possibility for an upset. Juventus, in turn, we will see again Szczesny in goal, and Chiellini may go back in the defensive line for Juventus. I know I see you, Alex, nodding, approving. How important is that to have that legend in the back to just direct everyone?
Look, he's so good. You know, he doesn't stand out individually, but he does all the right things. And I think the synergy between him and Bonucci is incredible. You know, together they are just Italian defense is the best in the world for a reason. Historically, and I hate to say that as I'm a half French supporter, but you guys are experts at the defensive game. Part of me wishes I would have trained there when I was a little younger and learned a little more from the Italian game there. But Chiellini is he's exceptional left foot, exceptional leader. And I'm excited if he's back in.
Yeah. As a reminder, Chiellini came back, I would say late February after an ACL injury. So I think that as football fans, we're all excited to see him back. Juventus probably will try to possess the ball since they have the second highest ball possession in the league and second highest passes to the final third. But they will have, in my opinion, to show more initiative than they did in the Coppa Italia game against AC Milan, because relying on episodes is just not enough for Juventus. They have to dominate the game. What do you guys think?
Yeah, agreed. The more they can find Dybala in those little pockets and get him on the ball and dominate those areas, it gets Ronaldo close to the goal because he has to do less in that moment. So yeah, the more they can do that, it enables them to move up the pitch together and they can dominate large chunks of the game. If they don't do that, then it's a little bit passive from their perspective.
Yeah, and I also wonder if Sarri plays the same formation with the same three guys on top, Costa, Dybala, and Ronaldo. I wonder how fresh they will be. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Higuain will end up starting that game. I'm personally a fan of Higuain, of the movements he makes in the box. So having maybe Dybala
do you think he plays Ramsey as well?
Ramsey too, yeah. He is not expected to play this Wednesday, at least from the possible formation that I looked at. But I think that some rotation in the midfield will be good for Juventus because, you know, it's like we said multiple times, these are the first games back. And going back to Dybala, I think we're gonna see, if Higuain plays, we're gonna see him more in that trequartista role, just behind Higuain and Ronaldo, which I love when they combine in the tight spaces. I think they're just deadly. Well, guys, that's it for today for this week's Serie A show. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Steve, Tom, and Alex, for your comments and punctual tactical analysis. I hope that you guys enjoyed the return of Serie A this weekend, and we will be back next Tuesday with another episode of the Total Football Analysis Serie A podcast. Arrivederci.